Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. In this webinar, we will talk about succeeding with DevOps. DevOps delivers business results, which is confirmed by Google survey, and how to achieve them with DASA's guidance. My name is Coco Lee. I am the marketing manager of DASA. I will be your host and moderator of today's webinar. If you have any questions during the webinar or after the webinar, please put them in Twitter and use the hashtag DASAchat or email them to us. We will follow them up. I'm so pleased to be joined by Irfan Sharif, our DASA ambassador. Hi, Irfan. Thank you for
Hi
being
there,
here.
Coco.
Hi.
Hey,
Can you
thank you.
please, hi, can you please take a moment to introduce yourself?
Yes, certainly, Coco and the folks. Hello there, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Irfan Sharif. As it says on the slide, I'm an expert program and a project manager with a deep passion for Agile and DevOps and using modern tools management practices like Agile and DevOps to help individuals, teams, and organizations to build great software products and services. And first of all, before we get started, I would like to thank the folks at DASA for giving me this opportunity to speak to the audience here. So in this seminar, we will talk about how Agile and DevOps can be used to build great products and services. So without further ado, let's jump into the meat of the presentation. First with an introduction about DASA itself, and pass it on back to Coco to give that introduction.
Okay, thank you. For those of you who join us for the first time, let me do a quick introduction. DASA is an open source association that has built a competence model and accreditation scheme for DevOps training and certification. We are an open and independent association that is working with more than 300 partners that include training and consulting companies, corporates, ambassadors, and content development teams. Organizations use the DASA model and instrument and work together, further enhancing this instrument to support DevOps journey of organization. Irfan, I'm going to hand it over to you now.
All right. Okay. Thank you then, Coco. So in this webinar, this is what we're going to cover. How do you succeed with DevOps? To do that, we get started by asking the why question. Sometimes we, in the heat of getting things done, we forget to ask why. I think it's very important to understand why DevOps is needed. What is the value it brings to the table here? And what are the business drivers and the technical drivers for organizations to embrace DevOps? We will then talk about the connection between DevOps and business results and what some of the survey findings point to, whether they invalidate the proposition about DevOps being good for business or not. And then we will jump into a discussion around why doing DevOps is hard and what can we learn from the experiences of organizations doing Agile software development and how we can bring it to our DevOps journey. And then we'll finally end with the what of DevOps and how of DevOps, doing DevOps right with DASA's guidance at an organizational, individual, and a team level. So to get started, then we will begin by answering the question, why do DevOps? In 1992, there was an US election campaign where this phrase became famous. This was, I believe, Bill Clinton's campaign, and the phrase that became famous was, "It's the economy, stupid." The reason that phrase was used was to highlight the fact that winning in the political election campaign, the economy was the most important thing. And doing the economy right was deemed to be the most important thing for any political party. Now in this digital age, if you may modify the phrase, and the phrase would state like this: it is the software stupid. The reason I'm stating this is because all companies are now essentially software or technology companies, and doing the whole life cycle of software development, delivery, and operations is critical to business success. As the folks at ING rightly discovered, ING, a big financial institution, a big bank, realized that it was no longer a financial services company in this digital age. It was a technology company that was in the financial services business. So that just once again reinforces the point that all companies, to compete and succeed, have to regard themselves as technology and software companies, because essentially it is through software that a great portion, if not all, of business gets done today. So really getting good at the whole life cycle of developing software, delivering software, and operating software is as a core sort of business requirement these days. And DevOps, and that's the reason why DevOps is important, because DevOps covers the entire life cycle of software development and delivery and operations. And then this was what was happening from an external perspective, what was happening from outside, the pressures that are driving the need for organizations to embrace DevOps. If we look at what was happening on the software side, we find this very interesting sort of phenomenon within software. Software is no longer delivered as a package. Software is no longer shipped to you in a CD. Software is continuous. Software is available 24/7, 24 by 7, 365 days a year, and it is accessed increasingly through your browser and your mobile device. So it's very rare to recall, and you would be dating yourself if you can recall the time when you actually received a software on CD. Software is no longer considered something that is shipped. Both software development and software operations are integral to the modern experience and modern way of doing business and modern way of doing work. And within this context, we have to talk about Agile and the great contribution it has made to get us to this point. Agile software development solved the problem of waterfall software development. But as we saw, it's no longer a waterfall development model. You can't queue up software and then deploy it. Software has to be continuous. Agile and the movement did not solve the problem of the last mile of software delivery and operations. So that's where, from a technology perspective and a software perspective, DevOps comes into play. It extends the Agile way of working from development to software delivery and operations, and covers the entire life cycle of software as a service. All right, then moving on to the thing we touched upon earlier about the connection between DevOps and business results. Google conducted a survey to find out the contribution of DevOps to delivering business results. And as you can see on the slides, folks, all the metrics that DevOps was driving are all business-related metrics. It goes back to my earlier point that because software is the medium through which we deliver our business, all the metrics that relate to becoming good at software development, deployment, and operations are all business-related metrics. For instance, as you can see here, when you talk about speed to market, because you have mastered or improved your ability to not only build software but deploy and operate software, your ability to get into the market increases. And a great portion of as you can see, around 50% show a net increase in their ability to increase their speed to market. Similarly, it does with productivity, because you're responsible for the whole life cycle. You're not inheriting debt. So talking about productivity, because now you're responsible for the entire life cycle of not only just the software development, but delivery and operations, the systems that deliver the software, the technical debt gets reduced, so the productivity increases and the ability to do the time available to do work increases, your costs go down, the speed at which you deploy goes up. And again, because of the predictability of delivering software into production, you're able to deliver features that are relevant to the customers. You're able to not just guess about what the customer wants, but actually carry out some experiments in production to figure out if this is a feature that is useful for the customer and that customers will want to utilize. Similarly, the capacity for innovation and production, product and service quality, all of them have a positive impact through DevOps. And that just gives you a glimpse of what is possible with DevOps and the sort of intimate connection between DevOps and driving business results, as was validated by this survey that Google conducted. Moving on to the next slide here. The key sort of thing that I want you to take away from this is that most organizations that were surveyed believed strongly that it was very important for the company to develop and put new software in production. However, only 10% of the respondents were really good at deploying at rapid software development and deployment. And the reason this was the case was because DevOps doesn't happen overnight. Getting people to work differently doesn't happen overnight, as the vice president of engineering at Google said. So that's what we're going to focus on in the subsequent slides, about why doing DevOps is hard, and why it is still a huge necessity, and what are some of the practical guidance we can provide you so that we can help you on your journey to do DevOps well. As this sort of quotation from Wall Street Journal sums it up, doing DevOps is hard, but not doing it is not an option. So as I said, we will focus now on the aspects that you need to focus on to do DevOps well. One thing, though, before you get started on your journey, or continuing your journey with DevOps, is to first of all step back and not make it more difficult than it should be. So some of the myths that make this sort of difficult journey difficult, or some of these misconceptions that are creeping in, is that DevOps is somehow replacing Agile software development. DevOps is not replacing Agile software development. It's merely extending the whole sort of Agile practices and values and approaches and software engineering practices to the rest of the organization. So as it indicates there, we are taking the whole Agile approach and extending it to the rest of the service delivery organization. Because service delivery and operations are as critical as software development, now DevOps encompasses the entire life cycle, right from development to ops, plus security, plus the rest of the departments and the technology components that are required to rapidly and effectively deliver software to consumers to support the business, to our customers to support the business. And the other sort of misconception that I want to deflate at this point, or make people aware, is that somehow DevOps is considered to be for ops and Agile is for development. It is not the case. DevOps is a way of bringing in ops and security into the early into the development process, and having dev being involved in delivery and operations. So DevOps is not something that Agile does. It's not rebranding your system administrators and calling them DevOps engineers. It is about the whole approach to the entire life cycle of software being delivered to customers and being operated. And DevOps is not a department, it's not a set of tools. And just to reiterate this message that the sort of deep interlinkage or the deep connection and the sort of symbiotic relationship between Agile and DevOps, if you look back, DevOps started with this Agile conference in Toronto where Peter DeBoy had this conversations at this conference that spearheaded or started this movement. And there was this 2009 O'Reilly seminar where they were doing 10 plus deploys per day at Flickr. So you see, people DevOps, as I was saying, has its roots in Agile, and the organizations that were native, cloud native, or digitally born like Flickr were already doing DevOps well ahead of DevOps becoming a sort of a thing that was in the minds of people. So having covered that, how you can protect yourself from making DevOps more difficult than it should be, let's talk a little bit about why DevOps is difficult. To do that, I just want you to step back and do a quick check about your Agile software development journey, or how that transformation is going from building software through a waterfall model and versus embracing Agile development methodology. And one of the key things, and if folks have heard some of the conversations happening on LinkedIn or some of the latest press around Agile, there is a whole deal of frustration around Agile itself, and it gives you a sense for what the challenge here is. Doing Agile well itself is very difficult, because Agile is just not a set of tools or practices that you can implement blindly. Agile is about a mindset that accompanies these methods, like Scrum, like XP, or Lean, or Kanban. The mindset shift has to happen before you can get the results from some of the Agile methods and frameworks and approaches. And getting that mindset is the most difficult part of doing Agile well. And that is the same challenge we encounter when we do DevOps, because now DevOps is moving beyond development, is moving beyond the core sort of development team to including ops, and including security, and including other departments, the networking, the database guys. You can imagine the difficulty in doing DevOps well, because we're already having difficulty doing Agile software development well. Now we're bringing in other people who are and making them part of this entire delivery life cycle. So that's one of the reasons. And the manifesto is what Agile presented as a manifesto. It forms the sort of the intellectual basis of doing Agile well. And sometimes getting people to embrace these values of Agile is the most difficult part. Well, we will talk in the next few slides about extending Agile and the Agile Manifesto and the Agile mindset, and bringing it to a DevOps implementation. But before we go into that, I just wanted to once again emphasize kind of the sort of linkage between Agile software development as well and DevOps. This is the Agile Principles that were published as part of the manifesto, which I said relates to building that mindset of teams, the Agile mindset, so that they can develop great software. And one of the things that, as you can see, one of the first principles of this sort of manifesto that was put together was that early and continuous delivery of valuable software. Previously, it was not possible to do that. Agile stopped where software development stopped. It ended there. But now with DevOps and continuous delivery, we have the opportunity as organizations, as teams, to actually deliver the full value of Agile software development and really realize the benefits of quick feature development and delivering early and continuous software that is valuable to the business, that deliver results for the business. And again, very quickly there, if you look at point number 3, it points about working software. Now, working software now means software that is just not software that is ready to be demoed. Working software actually means and can mean software that is working in production. So you see the connection here with DevOps and Agile, and the ability of DevOps and continuous delivery to extend and help organizations fully realize the investments that they have made in their agile transformation, in the investments they have made in moving from watersoft software development to agile development. And then now that we've got a sort of a sense of the Agile Manifesto and the sort of prerequisite to have an agile mindset to do agile software development, well, let's talk a little bit about how do we extend this to the rest of the organization that is involved in the service delivery chain, and how DevOps, because it's a much larger because of its much larger scope, because it involves the rest of the organization, we have to build upon the learnings from agile transformation and the importance of having an agile mindset that is driven by the Agile Manifesto and principles, and complement that with what the pioneers of DevOps came up with as the focus areas for DevOps, and the areas of focus that have to be really addressed and done well to make DevOps successful. And that is defined by this acronym COMS, which stands for culture. So we are moving away from an agile mindset to a culture that is agile, and the DevOps culture that takes end-to-end responsibility, that takes the values, both the deployment and operations of software, and continually learning from software, is that culture that DevOps promotes. And it does that. And one of the key pillars of DevOps is automation. We'll dig deeper into that. It is complemented by Lean, although Lean had, as is the principles, Agile principles, and the Agile Manifesto draw a lot of inspiration from Lean. DevOps explicitly calls it out, because Lean is all about delivering customer value, reducing waste in the system, and having an end-to-end view of the system. And the sort of fourth point here is around measure. DevOps is very focused and very obsessed with working with real data, and finding out what is really happening, and using that to drive both continuous learning and continuous improvement. And then with the lessons learned and with the continuous improvement underway, a mechanism, an organizational structure, and the processes that have to be placed to enable the sharing of information, so that we can become experts at just not the development of software, but actually the deployment, operations, and the continual sort of learning from it. To assist you on this journey, there is practical guidance from DASA. As Coco mentioned earlier, DASA is an open or community-based organization, which stands for DevOps Agile Skills Association, and it's really on a mission to help organizations embrace DevOps and do DevOps well. So we will talk about some of the practical guidance that DASA provides for you to do DevOps well. Starting with culture, as you can see, culture is a very sort of fluid and a very abstract and ambiguous term. So how do you actually measure how you're doing against the pillar of culture? How do you do that by actually breaking up culture into its sort of discrete elements, so you can actually measure and quantify and track these things. For instance, you have a cultural element that emphasizes continuous learning and improvement. So an indication of that is the retrospectives, the learnings that are obtained from these retrospectives, how they're implemented, whether there's a virtuous cycle of continual improvement, extending that sort of retrospectives to postmortems, or for faultless postmortems if there are incidents in production. That again is a cultural element that you can track discreetly. There's another item here about building quality in, so that you're not just focused in your development phase about the functional requirements. You also are focused on the non-functional requirements. Performance is getting built into the system, into the software as it's being delivered. Security is baked in, so it is not an afterthought. So you're not inheriting technical debt when you are deploying the software and operating this software in production. And again, a culture of product thinking. Again, this really extends what Agile has been doing for a long time with integrating the business to the role of the product owner, and using sort of practices like user stories or story mapping to really connect software to the business sort of goals. So I hope you found this useful, and obviously culture is just like mindset is very difficult to embrace and internalize, but it is a must do if you want to do DevOps well. Just like with Agile, you have to have a mindset shift to do Agile software development well, to do DevOps well. You need to have a shift in the culture. And this is where DASA comes in, provides you some discrete and decent guidance on how to do it. Obviously, you have to take this and utilize it for your specific context and work with it. And then moving on to the next thing, automation is again as one of the great pillars. This is really about bringing the ability to automate with software, the things that can be automated, what the computers can do, what software can do. We should be getting the software to do what humans are good at. We should let the humans do. And without automation, without the ability to automate our, for instance, our build process, so we have continuous integration happening. When developers are checking in code, they run a set of unit tests. We are not able to bake quality into the system. So automating the set of unit tests, automating the build process, so you have 10-minute builds versus nightly builds. So all this is something that organization will have to approach deliberately and automate the processes, the pipelines that take software from development to delivery. And again, it talks about the point number 3 talks about automated testing. Again, huge importance. We need to do it really well. Automate everything you can. The tests, right from functional to non-functional testing. The only testing that humans should be doing are things that computers can't do, exploratory testing, stuff like that. And then moving on, again, the process of releasing software should be automated. So release does not become a technical decision. It is a business decision. Business can decide when they want to release software to production. And similarly, so I hope you get the gist of what I'm trying to say here is that you really need to focus on automation and extending the ability of software to do things for us instead of humans trying to do things that are really they're not designed to do. And with that, we'll skim through some of these slides that provide sort of more details on how you can track some of your automation efforts. So there is detailed guidance around each of the sort of sub-pillars within automation, starting from continuous integration, where you're checking in code on a regular basis, where your builds are not failing, and you're making your builds visible to agile and continuous delivery of software, where you have embraced the continuous delivery principles, automated the entire pipeline to deliver software as you desire, as the business desire, effortlessly into production. Supporting the sort of from a life cycle view. Here you have from a platform and an infrastructure view, the guidance that is available for you to what other areas you can automate from an infrastructure perspective. Because right now, if you go back to what I was saying earlier, because business is increasingly done through software, it is just not enough to have software features deployed. You should also make sure that the software is operational and running, available in most cases where it's customer facing 24/7, 365 days a year. So you have to make sure that the platform that is supporting the software is automated as well. And now we move on to talking a little bit about Lean, which I called out earlier. The DevOps focuses on Lean, and this is where Lean comes in, allows you to increase the customer value and reduce the waste by taking a system-level view of your entire software process. And essentially, in an IT and a software context, this is how Lean translates into. You want to reduce waste. You want to increase customer value. And in software, that is done through validating whether requirements are real or not. For instance, these are some of the findings that we present as part of the DevOps course. About 50% of functionality software is rarely or never used. So this is obviously a huge waste, not only of resources, but opportunity cost. This is time taken away from building new features. It adds complexity to the system. It reduces the stability of the system. So now DevOps, with its ability to continuously deliver software and operate software, allows you to carry out some experiments, A/B experiments, or testing your hypothesis before you actually build the software, and drives down the waste and increases the customer value. And more sort of reiteration of the same sort of thinking process around how the Lean principles can now be realized when you have solved the problem of software delivery and software operations with DevOps. And in the next slide, we will talk about something we touched upon earlier, about the need to continually measure and learn from what is happening out with our systems and with our delivery process. And as you can see on the slides, we have the entire sort of life cycle being measured. Agile software development already takes care of measuring the speed and the velocity of software development. DevOps extended now to the rest of the delivery chain, with measuring tests and measuring your ability to do builds, deployments, releases. How is the system performing in production? We're both monitoring the system, getting feedback both at a technology level and at an application level, and feeding it into our development life cycle. And finally, folks, the last element is about sharing, which is building sort of the organizational structure and the processes, and supporting it with the culture that really allows the sharing of information about aligning everybody who is involved in the delivery, in the sort of development, delivery, and operations of software, to really move away from a siloed sort of view or a technology-specific view or a task-based or an activity-based view, to actually being driven by a mission of delivering value to the organization. So everybody instinctively knows what the right thing to do, and to support that sort of mission of the DevOps sort of teams, or the Agile DevOps teams, is to build upon the framework that is already there with the product owner, and the product owner has additional responsibilities apart from the business sort of value delivery. There's technical aspects that he or she is concerned with. There's an agile coach who's sort of a gamut of responsibility now extends to making sure that the process around delivery and operations is also agile and lean. And essentially building that structure, and that is something each organization has to decide what is the right organizational structure for it. There is guidance with companies like Amazon and Spotify, where you have squads, or even with ING, the concept of using squads to have end-to-end responsibility for teams. Or in Amazon's case, there is like the two pizza-sized teams. So whatever you call it, whatever you call your agile or DevOps teams, you have to give some thoughts to building the culture and the structure, organization structure, the process to support the sharing, so that everybody is on the mission to help the business use software to compete in this digital age. And finally, here is some very pertinent and practical guidance as Agile and DevOps team take on a more holistic responsibility, more end-to-end responsibility. It is important that they have the skills to do that, and that is where it goes beyond sort of programming and testing to include team members that have all of these skills. For instance, if you look at the first three elements, they talk about from a business side perspective and the technology and the architecture. How do you enable the business to define its requirements, to run its experiments, and then with the programming skills, how you do your development, how you automate the release and the automation pipelines, release and the test pipelines, how you do continuous deliveries, how you build the test specification, how do you extend it to the platform by including infrastructure engineering, and how you automate the process of provisioning environments, how do you bake security, risk, and compliance into the whole process, and finally to sort of build upon the agile mindset and the calm sort of approach to DevOps. It's captured in the skills area each of these teams need to have. So as you can see, we began with kind of the understanding about why it is important for organizations to build a competency around DevOps. And the reason we stated that is that businesses are increasingly being run through software. Software is the medium through which this is run. Whether we like it or not, most organizations have become technology and software organizations. Because DevOps covers the entire life cycle of the software process, it is important that organization embrace DevOps, extend their agile, and embrace DevOps. And we went through some of the challenges of doing DevOps. Well, we have to learn lessons from our agile transformations. And then we talked about some of the guidance that we get through DASA. And finally, we want to summarize this with this slide that sums it up in terms of how you build your agile and DevOps teams and the skills that you need to have for them to be successful, and take ownership of the software from soup to nuts. With that, I think, Coco, we are at the end of today's webinar.
Yes. Thank you so much. Let me take this opportunity to thank you, Irfan, for joining me today. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Coco, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I really hope our audience has got a flavor of what is driving DevOps, why it is important to do DevOps, and what is the guidance that is available to do DevOps well. So feel free to reach out to us after this webinar with the links provided. I'm available on LinkedIn as well, and you can connect me on LinkedIn, and we can pursue this conversation through those means as well.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join us today in this webinar. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye.